Welcome to Live Better Longer. I'm your host, Bill Borton. You know, a lot of people plan on retiring at a certain point in their lives, but sometimes those plans go awry. Some people get retired before they're ready. Other people decide they're never going to retire, and then other people have what's called a phased retirement. My guest this week, Dan Chila, had his retirement decided for him. He worked for 35 years as the CFO in several major regional banks after a career in public accounting. Now, however, he's in his 10th year of retirement in a way that he had never imagined he would be in. He's developed a second career that allowed him to utilize his financial and banking expertise. It's provided him an opportunity to do something that was not in his comfort zone: sales and business development. Dan, welcome to Live Better Longer.
Good morning, Bill. Thank you, and it's a pleasure being here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Really glad we were able to do this. So Dan, after all these years in banking, when you retired, was decided for you, right?
Yes, Bill. I spent my career in banking, as you've outlined. I had never really fully expected to retire.
You were going to work till you were
completely.
66, right?
I was going to keep working, but at my job, I planned to continue to full retirement at 66.
Mm-hmm.
And plans changed, as you said. I retired at 62.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, the reason was we had a corporate reorganization, probably my third reorganization over my span of years.
I didn't know that happened in banking.
It happens. It was the third president that I worked for. And it was all good. It was just a move that was timely. And I had planned to be at 66, but it happened earlier. And as I, at the time, kind of shocked initially,
Mm-hmm.
but it turned out to be a very good move for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was provided with a financial package that actually got me to be close to the 66,
Mm-hmm.
but yet not having to report to work and could think about doing other things.
Darn, that doesn't sound very good at all.
So
you
it
know?
was it really was a good situation. Mm-hmm. And as they say, cliche, when one door closes,
Mm-hmm.
another one opens, and that's what ended up happening to me.
So once this all sank in, what came next?
Well, it took a while to sink in and get over the initial emotions of being mad, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But I had about 6 months from the time that this occurred till actually I left. So I got to work pretty quickly doing some planning as to what my next steps would be. I had some criteria that I had been thinking about for a long
Mm-hmm.
time. I wanted to use my financial skills in whatever next step would be upon retirement. I wanted to stay engaged and stay in the game, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to continue to have a seat at the table with a senior management or being in a decision-making process.
Mm-hmm.
Money was not a major factor. I wanted essentially, not that it's not important in retirement, but I wanted it to be fun
Mm-hmm.
and fulfilling.
It's nice when you get to a point in life when you have that option.
Well, it is, and I considered several options or things that I thought I might like to do. Number one, I had a goal of trying to find a board position.
Mm-hmm.
With my experience in corporate America and with a public company and my financial background, I felt I could be an asset to someone.
Mm-hmm.
I considered doing interim CEO or CFO work for a turnaround company. And I also knew that I probably would like to explore the nonprofit world. So they were the options that I considered and started to pursue and explore if there were any opportunities available for me in those areas.
So there's another thing that you didn't have a lot of exposure or experience with during your banking career, and that was networking. So how did that become a part of your life?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the networking piece. While I was in my work years, I was pretty fortunate that I never needed to, quote, network for a job, which is the reason most people are networking at
In
that
corporate,
age
yeah.
in corporate. I found that networking was a very important and a very good thing to get involved with in retirement. And that's what I realized, that to do that probably in a more formal way. A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, introduced me to an organization that we're both involved with, GP-SEG, now Beacon.
Sure.
And probably one of the best things that I did as a first step in retirement and continue to do to this day.
Yeah, being a member of that group and having
Being
been
a member
on
of
the
that
board.
group and being a member of a formal networking organization that kind of teaches you how to do it. You get out of it what you put into it, but it's been very rewarding.
That's where we met.
And that's how we met, absolutely.
Yeah, probably about 6-7 years ago at a Princeton breakfast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By all means. So, how did that networking experience help you to get to where you are now, to what you're doing now?
Well, as I said, the networking provided me with the opportunity to meet a diverse group of people who I would have never had a chance to meet otherwise. Before that, in the work world, my peers were mostly my fellow financial officers and the banking community. So as it turned out, network opened some opportunities or presented some opportunities to explore. And through a friend of mine, he made an introduction to me to the founder of my current company, F.E. DeBacco.
Right.
Introduced me to Fran DeBacco, who I had known as an ex-banker and met years ago, but had never stayed in touch for a long time. We reconnected, and I have ended up working with Fran for the past 8 years in his company called F.E. DeBacco, which is a boutique consulting firm here in South Jersey that works with organizations to help them reduce their banking fees. And I work that, it's turned out to be what I consider a second career, and doing business development work for the firm.
No, it's fascinating, and I know I want to talk more about your work with F.E. DeBacco, but you also got involved with a nonprofit board too, with the food bank.
Yes. I served while I was working. I served on a board of a private high school, Catholic high school in Wilmington, Delaware. And I still serve on the finance and investment committee of the school. I'm also involved on a president's advisory council at my alma mater. And through a connection, I got offered a position of director with a major nonprofit in South Jersey, the Food Bank of South Jersey. I just finished my 10-year term with the food bank, and a very interesting experience, and one that with an organization that serves a very important mission of solving hunger here in South Jersey. I served as vice chairman and as chairman of the finance committee during my tenure there.
And a great way, again, to do well and do good and expand your network, too.
Absolutely. Having a network with fellow board members was another form of networking, which has been very good for me. And as I say, feeling good about giving back and fulfilling a mission that's very critical here in, well, nationwide, but particularly here in the South Jersey market.
So tell me a little bit more about Effie DeBacco. I know that it's been giving you a really interesting opportunity to see banking from the opposite side that you used to sit on. So tell me a little bit about what the principal activities are and what you do to serve people.
Well, Effie DeBacco was a company that was founded by Fran DeBacco back in 1991. And our sole service is to provide our clients with a no risk and an objective assessment of their banking fees that they pay. We essentially answer the question that a client may ask: how fairly is my bank treating me with respect to banking fees? And that's what we address. We do this through our proprietary and patented software system. And ultimately, we work together with the client to develop a personalized fee structure that fits their organization, and then go to the bank to negotiate new fees.
Interesting. Well, we're going to take a break for a word from our sponsor right now, and we'll be back to learn more about the services that Dan and Effie DeBacco provide for their clients after a word from our sponsors. Thank you.
RVN TV is a platform for people of any industry to share their story. Over 285,000 viewers are tuning in to RVN TV shows monthly. We guarantee a great experience that you'll be sharing with everyone you know while increasing your personal and company's brand awareness. But what is your brand? According to Forbes, it's a combination of your logo, your product, your design and feel, and your personality. Did you know that aside from being a guest, we offer even more opportunity to boost your brand? Adding your company logo and website on screen during your interview will allow viewers to recognize your brand instantly. Incorporating images and video clips is another great way to showcase your product during your live segment. Let viewers see how good you really are. And most importantly, there's you and your interview. For less than the cost of a newspaper, direct mail, or a magazine ad, you can leave our studio and within 48 hours have a permanent digital copy of your live segment to link to your social media, embed into your company website, or use in email marketing. Investing in your brand is so very important, and we can't wait to have you as a guest.
Welcome back to Live Better Longer. I'm your host, Bill Borton, here with my guest, Dan Chila, CPA of Chila Consulting. I've known Dan for a number of years. He's a good friend and a client of mine, and I'm really happy to have him on the show. So Dan, we were talking a little bit about big picture, what Effie DeBacco does for clients. So tell us, who is an ideal or a typical client for you and Effie DeBacco?
Well, Bill, our clients range from Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies to private companies, to healthcare organizations. We do educational institutions, governmental entities. Essentially, every organization that has a commercial analysis checking account that is paying material size fees for their organization is a potential client.
So I know we've talked about this a lot over the years, and I know there are some large organizations that have relatively low fees because they don't have a lot of transactions. And then you have some very transaction-heavy organizations. So somebody who's dealing in a retail environment or in a healthcare environment with a lot of payer transactions would probably have higher fees, wouldn't they?
Yes. Glad you mentioned that. The profile of our clients, as I indicated, could be some rather large, nationally known companies and organizations. It's important to point out that this service is by no means a niche customer segment that we deal with. It's across the board. It's industry agnostic, if you want to call it that. So any organization who has a checking account is a potential client. I'm often asked, what is your sweet spot, or what size sales organization do you target? It's hard to target it on sales because fees are not based on the size of a company's sales.
Right.
As you mentioned, fees are really a function of volume of transactions. So a retail company that has thousands of locations has hundreds of thousands of transactions and opportunities for transactions, versus a manufacturer that would tend not to have locations that would generate all this volume.
Understood. So now, Dan, I know, and we've talked about this too before, you know, all those years in public accounting and banking didn't prepare you for business development and selling. So I know that that was not real comfortable for you early on. So how have you managed to become so successful?
That's interesting because, you know, when I enumerated those things that I was looking at and wanting to have my use of my financial skills and my banking skills, sales was not in my vocabulary, so to speak.
You were used to not being sold when you were a CFO.
My sales experience was selling the bank. We were a public company, selling to investors, shareholders, and Wall Street. So I never envisioned myself as a salesperson selling a service or a product. And this tobacco opportunity led me into sales. And it's interesting because the service that we sell falls right into my wheelhouse, so to speak, of using my financial and using my banking background.
And relationships.
I bring to the table the experience of having been a CFO and having been a banker. When I'm meeting with a prospect, which is normally the CFO, treasurer, even sometimes CEO or president, I can step in their shoes, so to speak, because I've been on their side of the table.
Yeah, building credibility.
And I am on the banking side. So my job is to build, as any salesperson, someone has to like you and you have to be credible, and I think I bring that to the table.
That whole networking thing has been helpful too.
And the
hasn't it?
networking has been absolutely helpful. So I find the excitement of sales, doing something new, as very, very fulfilling for me, and I'm learning every day. I mean, I'm reading sales books, talking to a lot of fellow friends, and one of our mutual friends who has a tagline, "Everybody is in sales," Todd. I'm learning that that's a true, very true statement. So I'm enjoying it. After doing this for 8 years, I love it. I never realized I would be good at it. I think I'm pretty good at it. And I'm learning every day.
I know
And we're
you've-
helping people.
You've also
That's it.
started to recruit some other retired senior executives who have networks, and they've been helping you to find some clients, haven't they?
Yeah, within our respective networks, when we meet people, obviously it's like, well, what are you doing? And when I start to explain what I do, a lot of my network and my friends are in similar situations where they have retired and have had very fulfilling careers and are always looking for opportunities. And as they think about companies that they may know that this service could be beneficial, they offer some introductions. And it gets to a conversation where, look, if you're interested in doing this, Bill, we can work together, and you might have as much fun as I am in doing this. So I have several folks that I call partners that we're working jointly and developing some really nice business opportunities.
So now you guys work on a contingency fee basis, right? The
Yes.
client doesn't pay you a fee.
Right.
So you go in and you save them money, and so you, you've told me before that you've had some situations where you've saved companies, high 6 and even 7 figures
Yes.
in bank fees, some of these large corporations. And so you get a percentage of the savings for what, 2 years, I believe?
Yes, our model is we work 100% contingency. That's why we say it's really no risk to the client. We only get paid when, in fact, a savings appears on the client's bank statement. So we're not dealing in saving, a half FTE, a full-time equivalent person, or these are hard dollar savings.
And you're not recommending that people change banks. You're simply helping to keep the current bank as economically close to the numbers possible.
Yes, we one of the points that we really make, and a lot of times, if a client doesn't raise it, we do. Client would say, what ramifications might come to me if I start dealing with the bank on reducing fees. The bank is my lifeline. They're providing me a letter of credit, loans, and so forth. We don't deal on the loan side. Ours is strictly fees on operations.
And you told me that the fees aren't regulated by anybody, so it's what the market will bear, right?
Right. The fees are not regulated. So the point that is important is we don't come in with any preconceived idea that you should change banks. We value the relationship that you have with your bank, and it's been a long-standing relationship, and so we work together, and all we want to do is make sure the bank is treating you fairly. And it works very well. These are very amicable meetings. They're not confrontational. Banks know us. They want to deal with us, and if they didn't, we wouldn't be in business.
Yeah, and you've got proprietary software, and you've
Yes.
got decades worth of benchmarking experience
Right,
too, right?
right.
So this is all very highbrow, very professional, and very amicable, as you say. And so the client almost always gets a reduction in fees, don't they?
Yeah, it's a definite win-win for all parties. We've had the banks come to us and actually thank us for the negotiations and for what we've done for the client, but also for the bank.
Well, it helps
them.
solidify the relationship.
Yeah, it's a
long-term.
retention factor
Yes.
for the bank. Customers just looking to be treated fairly. As you mentioned, the bank fees are not regulated. One of the things that we bring to the table, probably the most important, is we know the market, and we have the data for all the banks. As of last month, I can tell you what Wells Fargo is charging our clients for these services.
So Dan, like all good things, this has to come to an end, and we are just about out of time. But please let our viewers know how they can get in touch with you if they are a business executive or a business owner and they'd like to talk to you about possibly saving on bank fees.
Sure. Well, we would love to have the opportunity to speak to anyone who may have an interest. You can reach me directly via email dchila@fedebaco.com. Our website is www.fedebaco.com. And my number that can reach me on my cell at any time, 856-889-5198.
And Dibacco is spelled D-I-B-A-C-C-O?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Dan, it's been a pleasure having you
Thank
on the
you,
show,
Bill.
and I
Hi.
hope that some of our viewers reach out to you because I know this is an incredibly valuable service, and until I really got to understand it better, I had no idea what a tremendous impact this can make for companies and their stakeholders.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. It's been
Thanks,
a pleasure.
Bill. Thank you.
Until next Tuesday at 11, this is Bill Borton saying thank you for watching Live Better Longer on RVN TV. See you next week.